divisions. These were distributed between 4 armies in France and Belgium, an army corps in Holland with its own separate command, and a Panzer Reserve deployed behind the lines with its headquarters near Paris. In addition to this, the 3rd Air Fleet maintained around 1,000 aircraft of all types. These would be joined by immediate transfers from Germany in the event of an invasion. These then were the forces available to Hitler on the eve of battle. The strategy for defense was as yet flexible. No one knew for certain where the Allies would strike. The first and principal line of defense was of necessity the coast itself. Behind the Atlantic Wall lay the 4 armoured divisions of Panzer Group West. If the wall was breached, their task would be to counterattack and contain the lodgment while forces were transferred from other sectors, and if necessary, from other fronts. In 1942, Eisenhower was sent to England to oversee the build-up of American forces in preparation for an eventual cross-channel attack. In this role, he had proved himself an excellent organizer and a skillful diplomat. As Supreme Commander in the Mediterranean in 1943, Eisenhower's task was to weld the many different nationalities into an effective fighting force. Eisenhower's management of this campaign further confirmed his reputation as an organizer, conciliator, and motivator. It was these characteristics that most marked his command during the preparatory phases of Overlord. Planning was thorough, the organization of logistics and supply meticulous, and overall strategy worked out in full consultation with colleagues and subordinates. As a field commander, Eisenhower was aware of his limitations and relied extensively on the experience and abilities of others, appointing Air Marshal Tedder as his deputy and General Montgomery as his land forces commander. Although Montgomery would direct the battle on the ground, Eisenhower would nevertheless retain executive authority and would bear ultimate responsibility for the success or failure of the enterprise. As one of the Wehrmacht's most experienced and respected officers, Gerd von Rundstedt was a popular choice as Commander-in-Chief West, but his task was far from enviable. Too often, requests for men and equipment were ignored, and his operational authority was constrained by Hitler's specific directives for the defense of France. In particular, Rundstedt had grave doubts about the value of Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Reports from Italy had indicated that coastal defences were no match for warships, and that counterattacks in coastal areas could be broken up by naval gunfire. Rundstedt's own preferences were for a defence in depth, maintaining the strongest possible force as a strategic reserve. This view, however, found little favour with Hitler, and Rundstedt's room for manoeuvre was further compromised by the appointment of Erwin Rommel as Commander-in-Chief of Army Group B. Rommel believed that in the absence of adequate air support, the coastal fortifications provided the key to the defence of the West. The success or failure of the initial landings would determine the outcome of the battle. Rommel's prestige was almost equal to that of Rundstedt. Moreover, he too had direct access to Hitler, a complication in the chain of command that could only augur ill for Rundstedt's control of the battle. The successful breakout from Salerno, in addition to boosting Allied morale, enabled assault shipping to be transferred from the Mediterranean to Britain. For a contested landing on the French coast, warships, transports and landing craft would be required in numbers hitherto inconceivable. Of the 5,300 vessels that would form the invasion fleet, roughly a quarter were warships. Chief among these were the battleships, cruisers and destroyers of the bombarding force. In support of landings in the Mediterranean, they had demonstrated a deadly combination of accurate and heavy gunfire. This would be the battering ram that would breach Hitler's Atlantic Wall. In the air, the preparations for Overlord continued to gather pace. In 1943, the United States 8th Air Force had been joined by the 9th, a tactical command transferred from the Mediterranean. In 1944, these forces, in association with the RAF, initiated a major campaign of high-profile attacks on vital strategic targets both in France and Germany. The objective was to draw the Luftwaffe to battle and so secure absolute dominance in the skies over Europe. By the spring of 1944, Allied preparations for a cross-channel invasion were nearly complete. The build-up of men and equipment in Britain was reaching its climax. Hardly a town or county remained unaffected. Everywhere, ordnance depots, tank parks, and supply dumps proliferated. One of the best fighter aircraft of the war, the North American P-51 Mustang, was the remarkable product of British and American collaboration. Built in America to British specifications, and with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, it outperformed every other fighter then in service. In sweeps over Europe in the months leading up to D-Day, it would contribute decisively to the destruction of the Luftwaffe as an effective fighting force. The Hawker Typhoon was originally designed as a pure fighter, a replacement for the now obsolete Hawker Hurricane. But it was as a ground attack aircraft that the Typhoon and its later variant, the Tempest, were to excel. Both aircraft were configured to carry racks of wing-mounted rockets. These were cheap to produce and could be fitted with either armor-piercing or high-explosive warheads. Rockets transformed the offensive potential of these aircraft, enabling targets to be attacked with near-pinpoint accuracy. Of the many varieties of amphibious assault craft available to the Allies, the largest and most indispensable was the landing ship. These vessels marked a revolution in maritime technology. In contrast to the landing craft, the landing ship was a fully seaworthy vessel, yet it performed an essentially similar function, and on a vastly greater